The Sounds of Chow Gar is a unique musical work featuring the cinematic portrayal of traditional Chinese kung fu forms. My name's Tom, I'm composing the music, and the project is currently in development, and while it's taking shape, I'm going to create these vlogs so you can get a sense of how it's developing. I will let you know straight away that the vlogs are on the nerdier side of things. I'm creating them for the benefit of music students. But for anyone who's interested in unusually tight synchronization between music and video, these might be useful for you. And for those of you who are really interested, you'll get a sense of what goes on behind the scenes and what is required for a show like this to come together. Kung Fu in Chinese just means acquired skill. It can be applied to anything. It doesn't necessarily mean fighting, although of course that's the way we understand it in the Western world. But the emphasis is on the skill of the activity, and for that reason the solo forms are really important. These solo forms are a set of preconceived movements which the practitioner works through on their own. And although they certainly do have a martial origin and application, they are equally an artistic expression. And it is for that reason that they captured my interest initially, because they have an innate musicality, particularly a rhythmical quality. So these forms have been filmed and then they're going to be set to music. The final outcome will be a cinematic experience with live music produced on stage, silent film style. But it's silent film for the 21st century because the music will be synced absolutely precisely with the visuals as they unfold. By the way, Chow Gar is a particular style of Chinese Kung Fu, and the story of this particular style in Brisbane, Queensland will be told too. It is the story of the Australian School of Kung Fu and Tai Chi, who we have partnered with for this project, but we'll tell that story another time. Right now, as promised, we're going to focus on some nerdy stuff. Truthfully, this vlog is for music students. I'm going to share with you some important insights that I've had composing the music using the software in a very specific way, which I haven't done much of previously. No doubt this is not particularly new territory for filmmakers, but I think the precision with which I'm aligning the sound and the music and the film is probably pretty rare. So the three main tools I'm using for this job are Premiere Pro, Pro Tools, and Finale. Premiere is for the visual cuts, Pro Tools for the audio editing and bringing everything together, and notation software like Finale is necessary because the music is going to be performed by actual people. First compositional tip I want to share with you is the use of Rewire. Rewire is a software protocol that allows two different items of music software to work in conjunction with each other, effectively running simultaneously and essentially teaming up. I've been using Finale for many years, and it has relatively recently taken on the Rewire capability. Now, although that sounds really fantastic, it in reality is not as great as it should be. I'm looking at you make music. It works, but it doesn't work great. Problems that I've discovered. If you change tempo in your host DAW, it cuts off sustained audio in Finale. Considering my project is going to change tempo all the time, that's a real bugbear. It essentially means I can't use the audio outputted from Finale, which I would have liked. Another question students often ask me is whether to compose in notation or to compose in Pro Tools initially. There is, of course, no right or wrong answer to that. It is entirely dependent on the circumstances. In many cases, composing music means sitting in front of a piano or composing in your head and staying away from a computer altogether. In this case, the process of composition actually begins in editing the video. Perhaps even before then, maybe shooting the video is the start of the composition. We could be moving here into a realm of activity that some people have recently called audio-visual composition, where there's a very blurry line between what is historically existing in the visual realm and what is historically considered musical composition. They're becoming much closer to being one in the same thing. And this is facilitated by our software. It makes it possible and easy to some extent. notwithstanding Finale's problems. At any rate, you don't need to begin in Finale or Pro Tools or anywhere in particular. You begin where you need to begin for the task that you are undertaking. Basically, I complete a rough cut in Premiere, and I have an awareness that I'm going to have to come back and change that cut depending on the way the music goes. So because of that convolution and because of the complex method of moving between different software to achieve outcomes, it's really important to understand the potential for structural flexibility in the software, and particularly tempo expression and tempo modification, and that the way that affects decisions downstream. Getting your head around this to begin with is a little tricky, and I've come up with a couple of little important discoveries of my own. I'm sure that everybody else in the world is aware of this, but I discovered it just for this project, and it has helped me immensely in managing that tempo expression, tempo flexibility, especially the relationship between what is happening in the audio and what is happening in the video. So this is very simple, very obvious, but also very important. And it is quite simply that you can assign markers to be absolute rather than fixed bars and beats. What this means is that you can change the tempo and the marker stays put, or more precisely, the marker remains aligned with the fixed media in your project, namely the video. Now, to be fair, I was aware that you could do this in Logic, but it turns out Pro Tools basically has the very same workflow. And you can see here that I'm moving the tempo in such a way that the end of the bar, in other words, the end of this musical gesture, aligns with the hit in the film, which I have used the marker to indicate. So you'll get a sense that this project, the Sounds of Chow Gar, it really foregrounds the physical activity of the Kung Fu practitioners in a way that the structure of the music comes directly from the on-screen action. And absolutely, I am responsible for cutting that and to some extent changing the speed and the time and the duration. But essentially, those people in the film, what their physical bodies are doing is directly related to the musical decisions that I'm making, and in a way it's really liberating. It means that I'm not dwelling on the sorts of things that I'd usually get bogged down in, and it has really enabled me to achieve a kind of a flow in my composition, which happens periodically, but this is turns out this is another equally excellent way to go about achieving that flow. It's a great experience for me as a composer, that's for sure. But it has meant that I need that kind of technical unification of 3 different powerful software platforms, which I have plenty of experience with, but now using them in such close conjunction with each other, hopping back between the musical composition to do another cut in Premiere and then back again. This kind of fluidity is a little bit new for me, and I will be reporting on the way this sort of unfolds over the next little while. Now, I did tell you it was going to get nerdy, and my production blogs will be a little bit like that, but there will be plenty of behind-the-scenes action as well. So I want you to stay tuned. It's going to be a really exciting project, and everybody in the team is looking forward to it. Next time I chat, I'll tell you a little bit more about who's doing what and the very, very special, beautiful people who are involved with this project, which quite frankly, I've been wanting to make all my life. It's music and Kung Fu. Come on, it's gonna be great. Chat soon. Chat soon. What do you say at the end of one of these things? Bye.